I think when we love anything, we seek union with it. I mean, I love a good double burger. Good beer, anything, good double. So we want a union with it at a digestive level. When you love a friend, we want union with. If you say you love someone, but you never call them on the phone,
you never want to spend time with them.
You never spend time with them. Do you really love them?
Or a beautiful landscape through climbing a mountain. In a sense, there's that being one with that.
Right. So when we love something, we seek union with it. And so what makes marital love different from other kinds of love is the seeking of not just emotional or spiritual union, but really the seeking of bodily union with the other person. That's the only thing that makes sense as to what marital love is. And so that's why when people debate about marriage and can it be two men or two women, I like to take the question back and ask, well, what is marriage?
Yeah.
What is it? You use this term because for me, if marriage is just the relation between adults, if it's just a relationship between adults that the state recognizes, you could have all kinds of prefixes in front of that. You absolutely could. But if the word marriage has something intrinsically bound up in it between men, women, and the children that proceed from that union, then you can't have prefixes like same-sex any more than you could have a prefix like solo marriage or to marry oneself, which you find on Huffington Post or BuzzFeed. Some people do from time to time. So I try to understand what is it? I actually, there's a philosopher, John Corvino. He was at Wayne State University a while back. I don't know if he's still there. And he is in a relationship. He may be married now with another man. He identifies as being gay. And he's a very kind person you could converse with. And he puts forward philosophical arguments in defense of homosexual behavior. And it's funny. So he's debated the issue. He was involved with debating the issue of same-sex marriage, so-called same-sex marriage, back in the day. He did a book with Maggie Gallagher called Debating Same-Sex Marriage. And what I find funny in Corvino's position is that he's asked, well, what is marriage? Tell me what it is. And he almost kind of is taken aback as if that's not really that important of a question. But he says, look, if I have to give a definition, I'll say that marriage just is a relationship involving more than one person where sex is permissible. That's a very philosopher's definition of marriage. Because I remember once I talked with a guy who just said, marriage.
So that means if I go to a club and hook up, that was a marriage. That was two adults where sex was permissible.
Yeah, and I think what
longevity to it.
Yeah, but although I think that with no-fault divorce or things like that, what minimal amount of time would make something really marriage? Normally, I think where Corvino would add is that there's there's an element of social recognition to it. That if you hook up with someone at a club, it's not socially, marriage consists in having it socially recognized. And I would agree with that because it's good for the society to recognize which men and women are having sex with each other and which children that flow from the union are theirs. That's important especially to connect fathers. When a child is born, it's prior to IVF and all this other stuff, throughout human history, it's been easy to figure out who the mom is.
Right.
Dad has always been a bit trickier.
Yeah.
So that's why every society on earth, or virtually every society on earth, came up with this institution so that to unite mostly not just men and women, but men more with their children. But I think Corvino, with his definition, what's funny about it, so he's even open to polyamory, at least in principle, but he still includes in there sex is permissible. Like it can't, that marriage has a sexual element to it. That's another, when you talk about sex and marriage, I want to ask people weird questions. Why does marriage why does sex have something to do with marriage?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Why can't we just be affectionate people like Bert and Ernie?
Well, there's the different, theories that you need to see online. I think Saturday Night Live did a trailer where they made fun of Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, but it's Sesame Street.
All right,
it's pretty good.
Yeah,
give me the ducky, man. No, Ernie, give him the ducky. It's a great video. My wife's always like, "Where do you have time to come up with these philosophical arguments and watch so much YouTube?" I'm like, gotta keep the brain going.
You're weird in that way. I wouldn't. I'd just spiral into a YouTube. Yeah,
frenzy.
It'd be awful.
But think about with Corvino's definition, and when I ask people, like when you bring up the idea, well, can a father marry his own son? And it's important when we bring up these counterexamples, people will become indignant very quickly. Once again, it's not about just winning the argument. It's important to present truth to people, but I want to win the person over. So I don't want to rapid fire things. And I'll also preface them. I'll say, well, I am not directly comparing this to a marriage between two men or two women, but suppose a father were to marry his son, for example. What about marriages between family members? And most people are taken aback by that because they assume that I'm talking about sexual behavior between family members.
Right.
But what about two elderly sisters who want to marry each other so that they can have property rights, visitation rights, medical rights, have all, they're a household that's committed to one another. They're two elderly sisters. They're all they have in the world. But, say, well, we could domestic partnerships or something. People will try to get around this, but they'll see that marriage, we use terms like the marital act, the marital bed. Even secular people agree marriage and sex have something connected to them, even though the rhetoric around so-called same-sex marriage is love. Why are you standing in the way of love? But here, the vast majority of people we love in life,
we're not married to.
We do not have sex with.
Yeah, that too.
And in fact, many people we love, it would be immoral to have sex with them. So that connection there of love and sex is not as strong as people may think. Sex should always be love, but love often is not sex.
Expressed through sex, yeah.
Yeah, and so here, even in Corvino's definition, say, okay, marriage, and it's funny, he even just allows, you don't have to have sex necessarily. He just says it has to be permissible. If you were to choose to do it, you have to. But why? And here I think that the conjugal view of marriage, that what marriage is for is, and that would be leaning towards more like the new natural law view, but the old natural law view would explain this as well. It's for that particular union that can only exist between men and women, ordered towards the good of procreation and the good of union.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.